Okay, let's talk some more about expectations of self and patterns that we notice and how to break them. In retrospect, there's a lot of insanity around my cycles of burnout that I just couldn't see. And I think the biggest reason I couldn't see them were blind spots, things that I didn't want to acknowledge, and things that I just couldn't see. When I think about blind spots, I think about the mirrors on your car. They're designed to help point out the stuff that is in your blind spot. So I need people in my life who act in that capacity, and those have to be people who can challenge me. I know a lot of supportive and encouraging and beautiful people who aren't necessarily going to call me out when they think that I'm being less than honest with me. So, if I can have that type of accountability in my life, if I have people who are watching my blind spots, then I don't have to keep repeating patterns in my life. The biggest and most obvious pattern that I repeated with burnout was I would reach a point where I was just fried. I was just crispy. My health was shot. I was beyond exhausted. I was preoccupied mentally, emotionally with the experiences of the people that I serve. And I got to a point where I just knew I was exhausted. I just knew that I had to step away. And what I would tell people was the biggest lie. I was just tired and I needed to regroup. One of the many things that I've noticed about the language that we use when we talk about burnout and working in our professions is that we never use the word just in a way that's fair. Just is a way to minimize, it's a way to rationalize, and it's a way to discount the value of something, which is what I was perpetually doing to myself. So when I would take time away, of course, I'd be feeling all kinds of guilt and shame, and I wouldn't manage to enjoy myself. But the most important piece of this is having stepped away and come back, I would repeat and do exactly the same things that burned me out in the first place. And this was the layperson's definition of insanity. Let's do the same thing over and over again and see if we can get a different result. At some point, what I had to reconcile was that wall that I kept running into was my own limitations, was my own unmet needs, was my own lack of self care and coping. And so I've learned that all of my good intentions accomplish exactly nothing. I've learned that I'm really good at lying to myself. The biggest lie, I think, or at least the most enduring lie that I told myself was for 20 years, I managed to believe that I was going to go to the gym next week. No, I didn't get there. I'm not going to get there. I'm not a person who enjoys exercise or lifting heavy things. And so um, I like bringing things down to simple choices. Part of breaking patterns is it's really as simple as what are you going to do differently? And so what I do differently today is I walk. I walk every single day. And by doing that, I ensure that I have some minimal level of self care where, yes, it would be better if I was, I don't know, lifting heavy things and sweating. But I know myself well. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. So by maintaining pretty good standards in nutrition and hydration and exercise, I at least ensure that my immune system isn't shot all the time. I ensure that I'm giving my body what it needs, and that's obviously very foundational. Breaking patterns means, for me, having to make commitments to myself, which I sucked at for a very, very, very long time. I have pride myself in having huge integrity. So commitments that I make to others, I would always follow through on. Commitments that I made to myself, I would always see it as acceptable to disappoint myself. And I notice that in most healers and helpers that we have a huge sensitivity to disappointment of any kind. And that impacts the expectations that we hold. So we work very hard not to disappoint others. We keep our expectations very low to avoid being disappointed by others. And our expectations of ourselves are insane. They typically border on perfectionistic, and they're missing very important and very simple considerations like, hey, you need to sleep. So, when I broke this pattern, I literally ultimately had to schedule time each week. I started blocking out chunks of time in my schedule in which, come hell or high water, I was going to take some time and do things that I enjoy doing, do things that are healthy for me. And I had to schedule that because I proved over and over and over again for years that if it's not in my schedule, I'm not going to do it. And all of the nice ideas in the world don't help people. You don't get healthier with good intentions. Obviously, you have to apply that stuff. So, one of the challenges that I like to give people is add up your hours, not just your hours at work, all of your obligations, all of the roles that you've taken on, the organizations that you're a part of, the service that you provide, the family, the friends, the everything. And let's write it up as a job description. Let's look at the standards that somebody would be held to if they were filling in for you. Let's look at the totality of what's going to be expected of them. And I want you to imagine like passing that job description on to somebody else. If this was somebody that you cared about, I bet that job description would look very different. So, a lot of opportunity in that, but put it on paper because as long as it's only in your head, nothing's going to change.